Hi, everyone. Welcome. I am joined by Byron Bruckner from Kayak, our partners up in Alaska, and he's going to share with us about what Kayak has been able to do in this past year and what they're looking towards, and all the amazing stories that they have to share with you guys who are watching this. So, Byron, welcome. Thank you for joining me today. And can you tell those who are watching a little bit, about yourself and about Kayak and what you guys do in a nutshell?
Yeah, you bet. Yes, I'm Byron, and I'm the executive director for Covenant Youth of Alaska. And thank you so much for partnering with us. First of all, we work with a number of communities throughout Alaska. We serve youth and young adults, and through our partnerships, and we really focus on building partnerships with villages and communities, churches, for the focus of discipleship, outreach, discipleship, and leadership development. So among youth and young adults. So that is what we do. And we do that through a number of ways. We run Bible camp, and that's in a particular wilderness setting. Some of you in the congregation have been to Covenant Bible Camp, and we've had a long time partnership with you of sending teams up to that wilderness camp. And we have about 350 kids that come in from many different villages, about 30 different villages that come into Bible camp and experience summer camp, only without toilets and showers. So it's a little more rustic, you might say, but nevertheless, it's a place where we are get the opportunity to share Christ and share the gospel with kids from age 8 to 25. So that's one aspect of what we do. We also train and equip volunteer youth workers in different villages and communities. We have 12 primary communities where there are covenant churches in those villages, and those villages range from from about 100 people to 5,000 people. The average village size is about 400 people, and they are not connected by any roads. So the only way to get there is to fly in, or in the winter, drive on a snowmobile, which I've done. And the communities often are separated by about 50 miles to 75 miles apart. So they're spread out and isolated. And so it makes it challenging logistically to do some of those things. Then as students graduate from high school or leave their village or community, many students come to the road system, what we call the road system, which would be Anchorage or Fairbanks or Soldotna. So there's different university programs or VOTEC programs, and then we connect with those students at that young adult level, and again do reach out with the good news of Christ through retreats and on-campus outreach, and then discipleship and leadership development.
That's amazing. So you really have touch points with kids starting when they're very young all the way through their young adulthood. That's really cool that you have that you carry with them through the process.
Yeah, we really found when we started, we really were focusing on the junior high and high school age. And we really found that, one, through Bible camp, that we can connect with kids at a younger age. But then we also saw as they were going off to college, students were really, even if they had received Christ and were beginning to grow in their faith, the university environment became really challenging for them to grow. And there was no real ministry that was focused on connecting with kids that were coming in from rural Alaska. So we saw students really, through those ministries, we see students really begin to continue in their discipleship process and journey.
To adapt your program that you've seen a need for change, and then rather saying, okay, well, that's somebody else's problem now, that Kayak has come alongside them and said, okay, well, we're going to shift how we do things and make sure that you can reach the broader audiences and reach them where they need to be reached. So that's really cool. So you talk a lot about Bible camp, which sounds, yes, as you've mentioned, many of our congregation members have done the Bible Camp Trek and helped, build things and help serve. And it's a beautiful partnership, and I'm thankful for that. So what does the last year look for you? Obviously, in 2020, I dare say you did not have Bible Camp. So what did the past year kind of look like for you guys, and how were you able to kind of pivot to continue to meet kids where they were?
Yeah, what we do is relational youth ministry, right? So that is really hard in a COVID environment when so much of that is person to person, and that, just that personal connection. And just like with Bible Camp, being able to be together for an intensive week with students and have those conversations around the campfire and those kinds of things. So COVID was a big pivot challenge for us. But nevertheless, we are used to working at a distance and with remote sites. And so we were, we are working in the youth ministry world. So we have a lot of great creative thinking staff and volunteers. And so we were really able to pivot quite quickly, and go to a camp in the box idea of getting packages out to kids, special care packages, kids being isolated as they were. To get something in the mail was, pretty neat, and just to be able to connect with them that way. And then obviously students are very well connected through social media, and so we just really ramped up our social media and engagement online with students in that way. And then in places where we could, university ministry, like in our college ministry, we have a discipleship house, the Ariga House. And because that was some of those students had to go home based on family needs and circumstances and the environment. Others didn't necessarily have places to go that would be healthy for them. So they stayed within the Christian community, and that became a family. And it's already kind of a family anyway, a discipleship family. So they were able to kind of remain together and function as a extended family unit.
So in a way, I mean, for those students that they could really hunker down and really stay, that probably was actually really beneficial for them. Thinking about, some positive outcomes that came out of a not so positive situation, that those kids could stay and really dive deep into their growth and their discipleship and community. That's really cool.
Yeah.
How many camp in a boxes were you able to send out, if you know a number?
Yeah, we sent out about 250. I think it was between 250 and 280 packages that went out to the kids. And then we sent out, we just recently sent out about the same amount of youth action Bibles to all those kids that were participated in camp last year. So
great.
Pretty awesome.
To continue to have really good impact on these kids, which is amazing. And I think it's really smart for you to then, take the technology part of it, since that's so prolific in young people these days, and ramp up that. So you kind of have like a good built-in audience for kids and relationships built online, since that's natural for so many of them now. So
yeah, we do have some challenges in the sense that the internet is a lot of families actually in rural Alaska don't have internet. And so there was a bit of a barrier there for some of the kids, because a lot of the kids will get their internet access through school, and school is shut down. And so kids were more isolated than they normally are. Although, so we actually put everything on a thumb drive as well, to make sure that families that couldn't afford internet or didn't have internet, good internet access, could still get all of the messages and all of the speakers. And we had, we filmed all the speakers from the different weeks of camp, and so they were able to get that, and then downloads of music and things like that. So, and because of the relational connection, it wasn't just like a random thing. They were excited to get their camp in the box because it was some connection to something they knew and had a connection.
Yeah, that's great. I think that's, a really smart way to pivot. And it seems like you guys were able to do so really quickly. So what are you looking what does, kayak look like in the next year, if it's possible to predict? I mean, obviously summer is around the corner. Do you think you'll be able to plan to meet? Are you doing camp in a box again? What does the next year look like for you guys?
Yeah, well, right now, as we speak, we have teams that are going to various villages and that are going to be boots on the ground, connecting with kids. Actually, it was going on last night, campfire, Bible camp songs, and camp around the campfire. So we've got 2 teams this week that are out and in different communities, and they're going to be connecting with a number of villages. We can't do our tradition, bringing everybody into Unalakleet, because Unalakleet really wasn't ready for 350 kids coming from different communities and 100 volunteers coming from different communities, all invading, into their space. But so that's why we shifted again to this strategy, doors open enough that we could go to individual communities. And so that's what we're doing. We're taking camp to various villages, village to village.
So you did once again. I mean, that's really amazing. You went from camp to camp in a box to personalized individual camps.
Yeah. And we're still doing camp in the box as well for other communities, because we can't get to them all. Yeah. But so we're doing both in that way this year. And we also last year we also did a leadership cohort experience, which we did through Zoom, and we had about 30 young adults in that leadership track with 15 mentors. So that was another piece of what we did that last year, which we'll do this year, and we're hoping to be able to do that in person this year. So we'll see how that happens. And then last year we also did young adult retreats through Zoom, and we had about 130 participants of young adults and kayak team members that were in those Zoom experiences. We did 2 different ones, and they were about 60 to 70 people in each of those Zoom young adult Zoom retreats. So there we go. But again, we're hoping to go live again this September, with those in-person gatherings of young adults.
Were those the new Zoom retreats? Had you done those in person before, or was this a new concept that has come out of COVID?
Yeah, it was definitely a pivot thing. We had done that in the past in person, as students come into the road system. Then in the fall, the end of September, after they're situated in their schools, we gather those students for an in-person gathering, and so we shifted to Zoom, and we retained the outreach numbers. So that was pretty cool.
That's amazing. I think everyone, they want to see people. So I even on screens, it's better than nothing. So,
well, we actually were able to connect with some other students in villages that had been at the in-person retreat in the past, but because of COVID, they were back in their home communities and in their village, and they invited some of their young adult friends to jump in on that. And so we had some other young adults from different villages able to participate in that Zoom retreat as well.
Well, that's great. So then you even had additional outreach that you didn't even anticipate. So what a nice kind of,
Yep.
bonus
and
point.
So moving forward, I think we're going to work at keeping that element of creating that pathway for students who aren't able to be in person, that are in isolated and villages that can't fly in because it's just too cost prohibitive for them, to provide a Zoom retreat as well. So we're probably going to do 2 young adult retreats, one in person and then one over Zoom for students who can't make it in. So that's an expansion of what we've done in the past.
Yeah. Well, and you're taking what you've learned that works and kind of adding that into what you're already doing pre-COVID. So I think that's really smart to, no need to just throw everything out as soon as things open back up. It's obviously there's a need, and which you wouldn't have known about even before. So that's smart to do that. So that's wonderful. Right. But it sounds like hopefully this fall things will move at least a little bit with the university students, a little bit more in-person work, which would be very exciting. That's the projection point at this point.
Yep. And then I think the new, from these village ministry trips, in place of in-person camp, I think we're going to keep that piece too, and do camp and also in-person on-site visits in these multiple village sites. We'll get the feedback from how that's going to go, but it's looking really good, and because it allows us to connect with kids who who can't make it to camp for one reason or another. So that's a challenge for a lot of students to be able to make it to camp. We rely a lot on scholarships because in many villages there's 85% unemployment. So people freak out at 10% unemployment, but because it's a subsistence lifestyle and there's seasonal work, there's not always cash to help get kids to Bible camp, and so the scholarships are really important. And then us going to each of those village sites, I think is really going to expand our outreach to more kids.
That's wonderful. Well, it sounds like what you've done in the past year has been amazing. You've managed to pivot and still work well, and that you're taking things that you've learned in the course of the last year and are applying it looking forward to making sure that you're reaching those gaps is really wonderful. So that's great. Do you have any short stories that maybe you could share with us that tug on some of those beautiful heartstrings about ways you guys have impacted kids in this last year?
Yeah, a lot of kids really felt isolated, and if they had a rough home situation, that compounded things. And so from online engagement, whether it's talking to students either over the phone or through through internet chat experiences. I personally engaged with a number of students who were just really in personal crisis, and were struggling with alcohol, in depression, in new kinds of ways that to a new level, and that leads to suicide in many circumstances. So really talking a number of students, and I won't share names, but talking to a number of students really off the ledge, I'll say, from a place of really a place where they said, man, I thank God that you contacted me, because I am not in a good place or a good space. And I really believe that God used this phone call to preserve my life and to give me hope. And so that's just significant, and it makes you want to get on the phone more often, and just call every kid we know. And we're trying to do that. But sometimes you'll see online, kids will post some really, it'll be clear that they're in crisis. They're communicating that they want to take their life, that they just want to end it. And those obviously are our priority calls. And we get on the phone and we make sure, and we identify a local leader in that community that can connect with that student. Also in the Aragao house, as you mentioned, because those students were a family and they weren't going anywhere, there was a lot of deep dive in their discipleship journey that was going on, and that those students were able to really wrestle with some deep issues. It created also some conflict, everybody living in a space and can't go anywhere. And I'm sure, many families have experienced that, but it really creates discipleship, I'll say, to a new level, because you have to learn how to work through those things, and you also how to apply scripture to challenging circumstances, and also dealing with where people are at, if they're struggling with depression, or if they're in crisis, to have that community come around them and walk with them. Really emphasize the power of the family of God and of the Word of God that gives us that stability, and allows us to put those students to put their feet on the rock of Christ, and they can recognize the difference between having their feet on sinking sand and having their feet on the rock of Christ. So that really happened significantly in the Aragao house community, along through some of those throughout the year. I'd say also the as I mentioned earlier, the young adult retreat brought in some new students, so there were some new individual conversations there, and some of those young adults then through those conversations felt compelled to reach out to kids in their community. So right now we have one young lady who was a student in the ministry, grew up coming to camp, grew up in the ministry, and is now a teacher back in the village. And she has been part of our the training of new mentors. And now she is in the village right now doing Bible camp in the village of Elam, reaching out to kids in that community. And she's a kid herself who grew up in the village. And she texted me last night and just said, Byron, all the input that Kayak has given into my life and has brought me to where I am today is she said, just know that it is making a difference, because it's made a difference in my life. And now I'm able to reach out to these kids in this village and have an impact in their lives. So that is exciting to see.
Your paperwork forever. If that's not a testimony to what you guys do, I don't know what is. So that's beautiful. I mean, one of our guiding principles is developing disciples. And if that you embody that so fully, it's just hearing your stories about what you're still able to accomplish and what you've been able to do and what you continue to be able to do is just, it's astounding. So thank you so much for talking with me. We really value Kayak and our partnership with you guys and the amazing work that you've done. And I know that many of our members are eager to return up to Unifleet and get to work back in the Bible camp. So is there anything that you want to say before we finish up here?
Yeah, I think there are going to be some new opportunities. So Bible camp's not the only opportunity. You know, we're going to have we have Chickaloon Retreat Center that we're developing, and that's an on-the-road system. It's an opportunity for students that are stay in the summertime in work and through the fall to be able to get together at that particular retreat center. So we need help developing that. We need help at the Ariga House in doing some projects around there, as well as these new village trips, going to various village sites and reaching out to the kids in those communities. So there's going to be some wonderful new opportunities coming your way. And also, if the congregation, if they wanted to help with some of these care packages to kids and sharing Bible verses and special treats, that might be a really neat opportunity moving forward too, because we're finding that those care packages really meant a lot to the kids, that someone was thinking about them in the middle of winter and reaching out to them and connecting them in a special way. So I look forward to new and exciting opportunities to connect with Gig Harbor.
Good. Well, and I look forward, as those develop and getting that information out. The ministry team loves to share opportunities with the congregation with you guys. So I will definitely we'll connect offline and start pushing those out to the folks, because I know people are eager to serve. So we're ready. But thank you so much for your time, and thank you for your heart for this mission and these kids. It's a beautiful thing to see I'm just keep looking at the picture behind you of these happy kids who just probably are so thankful that Kayak came into their lives and that Jesus came into their lives. So thank you for your heart and your mission, and that you're developing these beautiful disciples of, in these remote places. You are truly the hand and the feet. So thank you so much for what you do.
Well, thank you. We couldn't do this without the partnership, and we're just thankful for the opportunity that you empower us and give us the opportunity to be able to get out there and share the love of Jesus with kids here in Alaska.
Wonderful.